fun here. Well, welcome to the Oak Park Heights Becoming a City 60 years here at the Autumn Hills Park here in Oak Park Heights, and a lot of fun here, a lot of activities, a lot of games, prizes. The mayor's giving a speech, so lots to do here. So anyway, without further ado, let's check it out. All right.
You meet new people, talk to new people, and find out new stuff every day. About making friends.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our 60th anniversary for the city of Oak Park Heights. We're kind of a quirky city in that we became a city 60 years ago, but before that we were a village, and before that we were Oak Park. So we've gone through 160-something years of evolution. Tonight you probably see some picture boards out here that you'll be able to take a look at some of the history of the city. I'd like to introduce Carly Johnson, council member, who did a lot of work on this, putting everything together. And we have some council members here that did a lot of work on it. Mike Ronk, Chuck Doherty, city staff. We have something special tonight. We're going to have a storyteller that's going to tell you the whole story of Oak Park Heights. And then as soon as he's done, we'll blow up the bouncy houses, face painting, and there will be some exotic animals and some other things. And there's a board up here that would be wonderful if you can write little notes of what you love about Oak Park Heights for it to be published in the National League of Cities newsletter out of Washington.
We're here to celebrate our 60th anniversary of being a city. Although we've had people living in this area since before Minnesota was even a state, we've only been a city for 60 years. So we're here to celebrate our long history as well as our short history as a city. I think part of it is just the community that we have here. We have really great parks and we have events like this that people are willing to come out and hang out together.
I like just handing out the crafts and helping the kids and that.
What's cool about this event is that the city of Oak Park Heights was incorporated 60 years ago in 1959, and not every city celebrates an incorporation like that. We're unique here because we have been a village, we've been called just Oak Park, and then when a group of the council, it was a commission before, and the commission got together and said, you know what, we need this to be a city, incorporated it, and so that's why we can have this event.
And we need to start our story before any of us are here. We have to start our story back in the day when it was bur oak and red oak all the way from the Mississippi River down and across this rolling hills up here to the edge and down to the St. Croix. We have to start our story with the Ojibwa or the Chippewa, depending on how you want to name them. And they would start the story by saying, in the old days, in the first days, in the days before everything else, there were beaver. And they were big. The beaver were so big that people were dwarfed by them. You could ride them like you were riding an elephant. But no one would want to ride a beaver because they had big teeth and big tails, and they chewed up oak trees like they were nothing. And so the original people, they went to Nanabaju, to the creator, and said, you please, please make the beaver smaller. They are much too big. We cannot live with them. And Nanabaju, in his wisdom, made the beaver shrink, 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 shrink down to a point where they are like they are now, about the size of a good dog. About the size of just enough to be a nuisance. But the Ojibwe and the Chippewa, they lived here on the river until settlers came. And when settlers came, they came first and foremost for that timber. Not what was here, but what was further upriver for the red pine and the white pine, the old stands, the great stands. They wanted to clear cut, put those logs on the river, bring them down here bring them down further to be made into sawwood, to made into lumber, to build what we have come to call Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, America. 1854, the Cover brothers came, John and David. It is interesting. David stayed here. David was spending his time in the lumber business. He was spending his time when he got tired of lumber as a butcher, ran a little shop. His brother John went off to fight the Civil War, and when he came back, joined the brother, the two of them working. In many ways, they were the model for what would become Oak Park. Industrious families working together, working on the river, working on the land, working with each other. At this point, it was platted. At this point, there was the beginnings of settlement. At this point, the world was marked by small farmsteads with a few animals, cows, sheep, and the river, always logging, great boom rafts. We have no sense of that now. We do not know what it's like to see 100 yards of logs strapped together, 40 yards wide, 100 long, log upon log upon log, held together with chain, and men with poles moving them down the river with the current. And yet that was what built this community, what built Stillwater, what built all of that which is here now. That wonderful moment of taking which was oak and pine and putting it into the river and down the river. But my notes go on here, and I will say that the earmark for, I love this, the earmark for the early part of this 20th century, Lynch's Chicken Shack, which burned down, but they rebuilt it. They rebuilt it to look exactly like it had been, and they gave it a new name, Phil's Terra Hideaway. It began, how shall we put it, as a place where one could be seen without being seen. It began as a location where if you were somewhat notorious, if your name was Dillinger or Capone and you wanted to take a vacation outside the large cities, you could slip into the Chicken Shack, or later you could slip into the Hideaway and have a little something to sip, a little something and something. Whether it was before Prohibition, during Prohibition, after Prohibition, it made no difference. You were welcome at every stage. And because it was, in fact, like a hideaway, just off the trail, just off the view, coming and going became an amazingly easy thing to do. But you know, that all changed. That all changed when this great road out here, Highway 36, became what it was. And then the first bridge was built, the first bridge from Oak Park Heights across the river. I recognize that even now it may be somewhat, how shall I put this, uncomfortable to talk about the new bridge. The new bridge, which began its process of coming into the world in yep, that's exactly what it says here, 1958. If you want to talk about a piece of architecture that has changed Oak Park Heights, I think that would qualify. I think it would qualify as one of the great, here's how I would put it. I once was up in Cloquet, Minnesota, and they said, would you come and tell stories to the Newcomers Club? And I went, sure, fine. What qualifies as a newcomer? And they said, well, it depended on whether you were here before or after the fire of 1917. And so I think that if you had a newcomers club here in Oak Park Heights, the question would be, did you arrive before or after the process of making the bridge? But like all things, like the road, like the trees, like the river, one thing begets another. And those great beavers that once roamed the land got smaller, and in their place came houses and people and settlements. And came development along the highway, came Tara's hideaway, no longer quite so isolated, came this park, came the schools, came the future. 60 years now, and many more to come. Thank you.
One of the fun facts that we heard from the storyteller today is our incredible history with Phil's Terra Hideaway during Prohibition, and also our history with the lumbering industry that complemented Stillwater and Bayport.
All the snakes on the green table are all exotic, so they're not native to Minnesota. But all the snakes on the black table are native species. And this guy right here, his name is Popcorn. He's a Burmese python. They're actually really smooth, they're really soft, they're just covered in puppy scales. They're also super friendly. Most snakes you'll encounter aren't dangerous at all. They're honestly just super great animals, and I really like them. The snakes are really helpful in general. They will eat pests that we don't want in our backyards. They're a part of the food chain, so they're really important in the natural habitat. And they're honestly, they have such a bad misconception throughout people, so they're really great animals overall.
The City of Oak Park Heights is designated as a Tree City USA and has been so for 37 years. What that means is that the city has a program that has a certain number of trees per year, and we have to take care of them, maintain them, and plant a new one each year. We have to have 2 trees per capita, and in Oak Park Heights we have almost 5,000 people that live here.
So what do you like about Oak Park Heights? Quiet, here we go. Quiet's good.
And also, what people don't know is that I swing on the swing sets on my lunch break every day.